All right, we're gonna sit down here and make some video here. It is late at night. I'm here, got my kids asleep in the room behind me. It's my only opportunity to sit down with the camera and talk. Obviously, my dog and cat have found a toy to play with as well. I'm sure you're gonna catch tons of that on the camera. So let me open up my computer, get down with some questions. You know, reading down through your email, you come across the topic of lacking mental toughness. You would say that's one of your biggest issues, both with becoming convinced that you can't do a weight before even trying it, therefore missing it, or when things get hard, you just kind of give up. Do I have any tips for this? You know, probably 10 to 15 years ago, I would have just said you either decide whether you're going to do it or not. But I'm no longer in my 20s. I'm no longer in my 30s. And I think that the older I get, the more that little things like that creep into my mind, mostly when it comes to injuries. And I want to avoid those injuries as much as possible, because injuries in my 20s meant less than they do now in my 40s. It's not just that they take longer to recover from. They tend to be injuries that have been coming for a long time. So, you know, it's like a chain link type of thing. So I don't just get an injury. It tends to be a whole link of things that will happen at once. And then that affects how I can work, how I can pick up my children, how I can play, be a father, be a dad, be a husband, and how I earn money. And it takes me a long time to get back to training, which training is what I love to do the most. I will say that if people go back during the time where they considered me to be my strongest as far as gym lifts, my big deadlifts, my big squats. I mean, I deadlifted over 800 pounds basically every weekend for at least 3 years. You know, my squats were always, I want to say my training max was over 860 on box squats for about a year and a half. And then I squatted in the 9 area for about a year straight. And I didn't just load the bar to 9. I didn't just deadlift 800. I based that off of training maxes. So, you know, when my deadlift, when I knew that I wanted to pull 821, I calculated out what I needed to pull for 3. And then I backed that down a little bit. And I calculated everything out. I knew, you know, if I can do 85% for 5, then I should be able to do 100% for 1. If I can do 90% for 3, I should be able to do 100% for 1. And I didn't actually have to do the full 90% for 3. What I could do is I could do 90% minus the chain weight for a triple, and I could calculate that out. I could do 85% minus the chain weight for a 5. I could do the same with the different bands and combination. I had to figure out which combination of bands or chains worked for me, because a ton of band tension did not carry over to straight weight, and a ton of chain weight did not carry over to straight weight. The same on box squats. But what I had to do is I had to find other indicator lifts that allowed me to train those, and I still do that to the day. But even when I hit my biggest lifts, I only maxed once, absolute best twice in a full year with a straight weight max. I did everything else based off of reps, everything based off of chains, bands, maybe some reverse band work in there as well, some different heights, some different boards, time sets, dynamic effort sets, things like that. When it came to Atlas stones, I did a lot of stuff with Atlas stones, taking fat grips and holding fat grips in my hands and learning how to pick up stones off the ground with a pair of fat grips. Took a ton of what I could pick up. I mean, I couldn't lift near as heavy of a stone, but I knew that it was building. And if I get stronger at that, then I should be getting stronger at lifting the actual stone. So I think what you have to do is you have to look at the rotation of sets, reps, as well as what kind of percent should be on the bar, and 85% for 5, 90% for 3, and then a submax 92 to 95% for 1, maybe absolutely fine. Those are general standard. And then you can do the same thing with bands. You can do the same cycle with chains. You know, and if you do, You know, a standard, we'll call it a 5-3-1 cycle, although in my mind it's not the standard 5-3-1 cycle. If you do an 8-week block of an exercise with chains, and then an 8-week block of an exercise with bands, that's 16 weeks right there. And you don't start jumping up in training max. You keep the same training max. You beat the reps. You just get better at the lift. You use the accessories to make you better. And then you can do a 5, a 3, and a submax 1 straight weight, followed by a submax 5, a submax 3, and then a max 1 at the end of that. You know, I think that should give you a pretty good guide on how to get there. But you know, as far as mental toughness, so much of the mental toughness is making sure that you're planned out and you earn the PR. I tell people that all the time: earn your PRs before you ever get there. Know that it's yours. Don't just show up and expect, you know, this magical PR weight to be there. Don't just show up and expect, well, I'm going to pick up a 900-pound yoke on contest day because I'm just a contest day kind of lifter. Don't expect that. Earn the PR. You have to know what lifts are going to build you and get you to that PR. So there should be no doubt, no mental offness going on whatsoever. You know that it's yours by the time you get there. I hope that makes some kind of sense. All right, you have multiple people who express interest with trying a strongman competition, but the local contest, or the local athletes, the local contests tend to be on the heavy side with no novice class. As such, they could easily zero 2 to 3 of the events out of the 5. Is it worth even having them compete? I think it's always worth competing. I think that contest events should never be set up so people zero. Absolutely never. I've ran mini contests, local, state level, national, international for TV, and nobody bombs. Nobody's ever bombed. Everybody always gets a score on everything, and I think that comes down to contest promoter preparation. I'm always amazed at, you know, somebody showing, and beyond somebody just having a bad day, or beyond someone like me having a really bad event. You know, most overhead press events are always going to be bad for me. But beyond something like that, I think the promoter should feel bad if he has a series of people that bombs, because it's usually a great sign that they did not test the equipment, or that they definitely did not advertise the contest to the specific strength areas of the athletes that they want. You know, if you're having nationals, that's one thing. And if you're holding nationals, then you shouldn't have local athletes there. And if you're having a local show, you shouldn't be looking at having national level athletes there. So you have to organize your contest based upon, you know, who you expect to be having at the contest. That said, you know, if for some reason I happen to qualify for Masters World's Strongest Man this year, and I'm really hoping to, I will probably once again bomb a couple of the events. I'm going to continue to, you know, practice and get stronger at them, but I'm going to walk into the show, you know, at the highest level that I can compete in today, and have a full understanding that I'm going to bomb and get zero. An overhead press, it's just probably going to happen. I'm going to walk into it, and if I know 3 weeks out that I'm nowhere near close, I'm just going to stop training for it, let my body over recover, and I'm going to prepare for the other events. But you know, it's like having an exam right there, and I know I'm going to do something bad. Should I take the test? Should I not take the test? Yeah, I should take the test. That's part of what we do and why we do. Take the test, do the competition. You get a 0, no big deal. It's not. You got to let it fly off your back. You know, I tell this story all the time. I had 2 training partners when I was training in weightlifting. One was Bulgarian, and I do mean 100% Bulgarian, and he trained at the Bulgarian School of Weightlifting, a paid school. Never had a class, never had a history class, a math class, anything his entire life. Everything was weightlifting 3 times a day his entire life. My other training was Russian and Greek, Cypriot, and their attitudes were totally different. So the Bulgarian would come in and max all the time, miss a weight 2 or 3 times every day, brushed it off his back, never bothered him whatsoever. The Russian, Greek, Cypriot athlete missed a weight. He made sure his day was terrible, the rest of your day was terrible. Everyone else in the room then had a terrible training day, and his whole programming was just screwed for the next weeks. I mean, everything was all messed up. And it didn't come down, they both made amazing progress. They both lifted amazing weights with amazing skill level, amazing heart, amazing athletes. But it came down to having an understanding whether you're Bulgarian or Russian. If you're Russian, you mostly stick with reps and you never miss because it totally screws with your head. If you are Bulgarian, you miss, you brush it off your back, and you just keep going. And that's with training, that's with contests, that's with everything. So you just have to understand, is this the kind of person that can miss and just be like, whatever, I tried. I mean, I gave it everything I had. That's what we've got today. Or is this the kind of person who has to have this to be successful? But I say there's nothing wrong with it. Go out there. If they're not going to get injured and hurt, go for it. No matter what, you're always going to get stronger. And just like the cost of living, it's never going to go down. How do I decide a good weight for strongman? You are tall, 5'8", USS middleweight. That limits 165, but you're definitely too weak to compete as a heavyweight. You somewhat worry about keeping your weight down, because keeping your weight down might be causing you some issues with building strength. You know that you haven't set a PR on bench, deadlift, or squat in like a year. You could bulk, but you feel kind of slow and sluggish once you pass 180 pounds. You're thinking you have two options. Stop worrying about the weight as much, eat, and probably add weight. And then if you end up competing as a heavyweight and thus zeroing some events, so be it. It's not like you were dominating the middleweights, your words. Or you can clean up your diet and perhaps some more cardio to try to keep your weight down while adding strength. There are a lot of facets to that question. I am that guy that has always eaten everything in sight, and I've very rarely been overweight. Usually once or twice per year, my body will hold on to a lot of weight, depending on what kind of therapy I'm running. And once I start getting to the 280 to 285 range, I normally jump there so quick because my body's constantly just the weight's being sucked off of me with medication. So once the medications take away and I gain a lot of weight rapidly, then I have problems with cardio and movement because it all comes so quickly. So there's nothing wrong with eating like crazy as long as it's nutritional food, because you don't just need the calories, you need the nutrition to fuel you and keep you possibly a little more injury free. And I think that does come down to nutrition. But you don't need to just be fat. So you're always going to be a product of what you do. So if you eat like crap and then you sit around and do nothing, that's how you're going to look and that's how you're going to produce. You take a basketball player who eats, 15, 20,000, not 20,000, but eats, 8,000 calories a day. And then he goes out, like an NBA player will play a basketball game and burn something like 3,600 calories during a game. So, he's a product of what he does. So if you're going to burn those calories, eat them, increase the nutrition. Should you go middleweight or heavyweight? Depends on how good you are at cutting weight. I've never had an issue with athletes dropping an easy 9 pounds during meet week and then putting it back on the next day for the contest. So if that's something you want to do, you can definitely manipulate water and cut and gain that way. If you repeatedly know that you are slow and sluggish much past 180, then I think you need to kind of stay under the 180 range and work on speed. But strength still comes down to muscle and size. It just does. I know the old thing we used to talk about, size does not equal strength. Well, for the most part, that's true. But on the other side, there's really so few skinny people that produce tons and tons of power, especially in the sports that we do. I think when people were all roughly the same size, you could say, yeah, you can get smaller and get faster. And, you look at a lot of small guys in powerlifting that can use a lot of weight, but still the guys moving the most weight, the girls moving the most weights are the bigger girls. You go down to a very small class of a very few women that are very small body weight moving ridiculous amounts of weight. They're still really freaking jacked. Traps up to their ears, huge shoulders, triceps, lats, quads, hamstrings. They still have large amounts of muscle. And I don't think you have that. So always focus on adding more muscle. The muscle is what's going to move that weight. Fat and body weight is going to kind of go hand in hand with genetics. And I don't want to bring this up, but I do want to bring this up and be completely honest. The number of people that are making weight, that are producing big numbers, that are lifting crazy weights in contest and that are maintaining everything in a body weight category, they're not drug free, or the number of them that are is just very, very small. So I think you have to keep that in mind. I'm not pushing that side, but that's something that you have to understand, that the anabolics increase the body's ability to recover. It increases your body's ability to store your food as muscle, to have a little bit leaner muscle tissue, which all of that turns over into continued progress almost no matter what you do, to a point. Hope that makes some kind of sense. But what you do, you got to make that call. I would stay out of the slow area, but I'm always a big fan of adding muscle and increasing activity and nutritional foods. Okay, so you said, what is a reasonable cut? I'm guessing a water cut for strongman. Powerlifting, you wouldn't cut more than 5 pounds at the most, but it seems that most strongmen cut a lot more than that for competitions. What I would have you do is I would set up a water manipulation. If we were looking at a contest in 12 weeks, probably about 5 to 6 weeks out, we would do a mock water cut, just to have a general idea, to make sure you can get all of the, the vitamins and foods and waters that your body's going to need in order to drop that water. And we want to have a general idea on how you're going to feel. How much weight can we take off of you without you feeling terrible? How much weight can we put back on you in 24 hours and get you back in the gym and feel decent? What kind of mistakes did we make? And a big thing with water manipulation is you have an understanding that you're going to be okay no matter what. So when your weight goes up at the beginning of your water manipulation, you're not panicking saying, man, I've already gained 4 pounds, Clint. There's no way I'm going to drop 13. So you have to have the faith that that is going to happen. That only happens through experience. And then once you drop weight, you have to have faith that you are going to put it back on, and that you are going to feel better tomorrow, and that you are going to be able to perform. And that's going to come from practice. So, 7, 8, 9 pounds has never been a major issue. My wife has 2-hour weigh-ins, which is 2 hours from the point that she gets off the scale to when she gets on the platform to lift. So that includes a warm-up time for snatch and clean and jerk. So that's not much time at all. So we've had her in a sauna, wrapped in cling wrap with sweatsuits on, sweating out the last pound or two to make weight, and then start flushing fluids again to get her back on the platform, and she performed absolutely fine. But we were used to that, and we knew what we were doing. So that would come completely with practice. And a 24-hour weigh-in would be ideal. You have at least 2 people who've said they really enjoy strongman, but they're quite small and short. For a lot of events, you don't know if this matters, but for certain things, you're not for sure how to help them. Like a stone load to a very high platform, a heavy sandbag pick, short arm problems, or practically all of the overhead events. Axles are hard on small hands and difficult to clean with no power belly. Logs are taller than they are. Circus dumbbells are just huge and awkward. That's just going to be it. You got to focus on little things like an 18-inch deadlift. So if you're programming them and you're giving them 3 events to do for the day, and 2 of them are just going to be hard because of size, and I have the same issue. I'm no longer a giant guy. And I remember back when 6'2" was big, and 6'2" is now no longer big. I do have giant hands, so I don't normally have a grip issue, but I have arthritis everywhere, which makes everything an issue. Most of my training partners are short, minus a couple of the guys. So what I would do is, if you're setting up, the plan for the day is 3 events. You got to always have a good event in there for them. And I think every contest should have a good event in there for them. So if they're doing an axle clean and press and the grip is their limiting factor, well, you're going to have to teach them how to do an over-under continental clean. Let them use the belt. Don't let them use the belt. The rules seem to always be changing. You don't have to have a fat belly to continental clean an axle. Does it help? Probably. But I've seen lots of really skinny guys. Mariusz Pudzianowski had no issue continental cleaning an axle. Lots of guys with abs have no issues cleaning an axle. You just have to know how to do it. Maybe they need to get a sticky shirt. Maybe that's what it is. Take a tacky towel and tacky that shirt up a little bit. Take some spray tacky and spray that shirt. But learn how to make the best use of what you have. Get more technical about those events that are difficult for you. If you're having an issue loading a stone to a high platform, we had this issue last year at Cyprus Strongest Man. My training partner, Kostis, he's really short, and he's out there competing against, like Ilya, who's 6'6", 6'7", 400 pounds, something like that. And the first Atlas stone was about to head height. I don't remember what the first stone was, but it wasn't a joke stone. And they were all arguing, maybe we should take away the first stone, maybe we should take away the first platform. Kostis is not going to be able to do it. He's too short. And I just walked out there and said, he's going to do it. I guarantee he's going to load that first stone. So leave that stone there and he's going to do it. But he practiced stone shouldering, so that's exactly what he did. He knows that because he's shorter and the first platform is probably going to be taller, he's going to have to learn to shoulder the stone and then press it up. So you just have to know what your weaknesses are. You have to practice being explosive from the lap. You have to practice at getting better at what you're not. Now, having an event in there like a card deadlift or an 18-inch deadlift, that needs to be a staple of their weekly routine. So if they're constantly being bombarded with events that are hard for them, throw in some events, at least one event every single training session that's a good event for them, something that benefits them by being shorter. Maybe a press out of the rack, an Atlas stone load to a low platform, something that's nipple level or belly button level even. There's nothing wrong with that. Something super heavy. The sandbag, they're going to figure out how to load sandbags. Have some fun with it. Get a tacky towel. Get that grip in there. There's nothing wrong with a tacky towel. I think it saves your bicep tendons on a sandbag. But the big ones are the card deadlift, trap bar deadlift, any kind of partial deadlift, anything where their height is going to be a benefit to them. And keep that in their training program just for their sanity. A little bit for yours too. We've got a good one here, I think. There are two upcoming competitions you're looking at doing, either you or people that you work with. One has a log clean and press for reps, clean and press each rep. Farmer's carry and deadlift, carry 50 feet, deadlift for the remainder of the minute. Steel bending, keg over bar, and a seated carpool. The other is static monsters, highly suggest it, maxed 18-inch deadlift, and max log. Trying to come up with a reasonable schedule to prepare for both of these. I'm thinking something like week 1, log, 2 to 3 reps, 5 sets, at a reasonable heavy weight with like 1 to 2 minute rest. Farmers with deadlift, steel bending, grip work, and stones. Week 2, log for reps in a medley, probably alternate single arm stuff and our axle in a medley. Axle deadlift, maybe 3 sets of 3 at a reasonable heavy weight. Sled pull and keg over the bar. What are my thoughts? I think static monsters kind of needs to be trained like static monsters. I think you need to work on the axle deadlift from 18 inches. Because I'm pretty sure static monsters is an axle deadlift from 18 inches, not a bar from 18 inches. And I think the only way to really train that is to do that as close to contest style as possible. Log, there are so many ways to train log. If instead of working clean and press for reps, you can always rotate in and out. The AC/DC method is a great one. You put on an AC/DC song and one clean as many reps as you can, and you don't stop until the song is over. So you're going to end up 7, 8, 9 cleans in an AC/DC song. And if you don't time it properly, you're going to die. So stop a few reps short every time. Somewhere around 65 to 70% is absolutely fine with the log. So you're going to get that endurance. You're going to work on the cleans, and you're going to get a number to beat that you can come back and beat in a few weeks. Also on the log, 8 sets of 2 at 5 sets of 2 at 80% is a great way to train log. It gives you multiple sets to work on technique. You're not going to failure because you're only doing sets of 2, and that's got you at 10 reps at or above 80%, which is optimal. 90% for 3 to 5 singles is also optimal on the log. You have the 90% of the log so you can practice the technique. You're doing multiple singles, you can practice the technique, and the technique at 90% on the log is different than the technique at 70 and 80. But the technique at 90% is carries over to that 100% log a little bit better than the 70 to 80% log. There's too many mistakes you can make at 70 and 80% that you can't make at 90 and still make a good lift. So all of those are absolutely wonderful. I would not get too hung up on saying max log, we have to train this way. Clean and press each rep, we have to train this way. I just think you need a plan and you need a rotation. And I think the AC/DC method is a fun method to do. You could also do, you just got to get stronger, because how do you train? You know, if the contest is going to say you're going to use 200 pounds, for instance, and you have someone who 200 pounds is a joke, maybe their 1 rep max is 350. Well, 200 pounds is just going to be a cardio fest to make sure I don't get dizzy kind of thing. And then what if you have somebody else whose 1 rep max is 180 to 210? How do you train a 200 pound log for reps? So the idea for both static monsters and the clean and press for reps is going to be the same, just get stronger. You know, and work on timing. If your 1 rep max is 210, you get 200 for reps. The goal is to get a double with a shot at a third. So you've got to get a little bit stronger. Work on your press, work on your incline press, work on your triceps, your upper back, and work on a lot of timing. You know, make a good single, sit down, take a deep breath, and then realize that when you've got 15, 20 seconds left, you got to go for it again. But I don't think there's any magic with that. As far as training the other events, if we're looking at log, clean and press, and axle, I think you can do a lot of work with the 18-inch max axle. Once again, 80% for 5 sets of 2 is great, because that 18-inch deadlift axle is going to eat your back up. 90% for 3 sets of 1 is also great, because you're going for a max, you're not going for max reps. You can also do that midweek, program that in there for them midweek if they're not already, or if they're not doing it with you. But that's not an event that you're going to be able to do every single week and recover from. Neither of those are. You're not going to be able to max log and max deadlift every week and recover properly. Your body's going to be too beat up. So that gives you a lot of room to hit some reps. Farmer's carry and deadlift. Once again, that event's going to beat you up for the axle deadlift. There's no reason you have to do that as 100% contest weight. So I think, you know, a lot of your athletes, you can do most of those events with 85 and 90, 92% of contest weight, and that's going to save your body a lot. Allow you to do a multiple set and make progress without getting beat up. And you know that when come contest day, you should be fine if you can handle 90 to 92% of the contest weight effectively. Steel bending, I think that's, you know, if we're talking about something long, or we're talking about, you know, a little bar like that, I think that's something you can definitely play with. Take every precaution possible. Wrap your wrists, wrap your elbows, use towels, take care of your hands. Those are events that can just beat up your tendons. And once your tendons start aching, your log clean and press is going to go to the toilet. You're not going to be able to log clean and press, you're not going to be able to squat, you're not going to be able to bench press, you're not going to be able to overhead press. So I don't think that's something that you have to do very often. Keg over bar, I think, is a great event. That's a great event to do after squats. Anything that's triple extension is great. Once again, is that going to be cardio? Is that going to be some sets of 5 to 10? Or is that going to be something really, really heavy? Either way, I think that's an event that can be done on a very frequent basis, especially if you're rotating. You know, we're going to do some, keep the intensity nothing over a level of, say, like 8 or even 7. And cut the rest periods to where they're only like 1 minute, 2 minute rest periods, 3 sets of 5, something like that. But you don't have to kill yourself on those. Do 1 week at a high bar, 1 week at a low bar, 1 week at contest height. There are no set rules on this. You just have to practice technique. You're going to get stronger, and you should be getting stronger in the gym at all of this stuff. A seated carpool. I'm assuming you mean arm over arm, seated. That's a great event to do. You probably need to do it 3 times before the contest, probably no more. It's a lot of biceps, it's a lot of technique, and you need to have the time to where you can work on technique with your athletes. Making sure they're completely laid out, they're having fast arms, they've got a good rhythm of going back and forth, they know how to take their breath. They have the grip. Do they need to wear gloves or not? Are the elbow sleeves going to constrict the biceps way too much? Are they using way too much back? Are they using their legs at all? There are a lot of little things that you can work on, but I think it's another one of those events that if you do it every single week for 5 to 6 weeks, you're definitely going to stop making progress. You need about 3 good weeks of training on that before your body's kind of stalled. And of course, you mentioned stones in there. I think stones are always a great event. There are a lot of things that I've had luck with as far as stone training. I've had great luck with stone training, doing them alternative to what most people would suggest. We will start, you need a great warm-up, but start with the heaviest stone at a low platform. Let's say you're going to do 3 or 4 stones in a row. Start with the heaviest stone, like a 320-pound stone, load it to the lowest platform, go down to a stone a little bit lighter to a smaller platform, stone a little bit lighter to a smaller platform, stone a little bit lighter to the smaller platform, and then go back to that first stone and attempt to reload that again to that platform. I think it's one of the best ways to load stones and save your biceps and your back as well. And that way you know that you still have that 4th or 5th stone at the end whenever you need it. Stones are obviously going to carry over to keg over to bar. Keg over bar should carry over to stones. But you've got to watch the steel bending, the farmers, the max log, the atlas stones. All of those are going to be, extremely bicep heavy. And all you need to do is set those biceps off wrongly once. So don't be afraid with any of your clients ever just to say, we're going to back off and do 2 events today or 3 events today, or we're going to save our biceps today. You've got some kind of pain going on, we're going to skip stones, we're going to skip keg over bar, we're going to skip arm over arm. Don't think twice about it, you're already prepared. Give them some encouragement and back away and don't get them beat up. That's a great thing about having a great coach with you, is them giving you the permission to back up and telling you it's okay, you're ready anyway. All right, how strict of a diet do I recommend for strongman? Do I do certain macros? Do I track certain foods or calories? Or I just try to eat a ton of protein and vegetables? Going with the weight class. Man, I used to hate it when people used to say this to me, but people would say that they don't track macros or calories. They track recovery. And that's the big thing. That's one of the big things that I ask all my athletes when I'm working with them. How is your recovery? How is your soreness? How do your joints feel? Your feet, your elbows, your shoulders, your hamstrings, your knees. How many days is it taking you to recover? And if it's taking you, several days to recover, then we need to increase food and other recovery methods. If you're recovering fairly quickly, then we're probably doing okay, but I still want to know what you're eating. Hey, not getting attention. So if you're not recovering, you need to eat a little bit more. If you are recovering, then you're probably okay. If you're recovering and you're getting fat, then you're either eating the wrong kind of foods or you're definitely overeating. So, and the thing is, all of that is subjective. Am I recovering? Well, I think I am. I feel pretty good. And then you don't realize it until you increase calories. You're like, oh, wow, that's what recovery feels like. And that's how a lot of people end up being, extremely overweight, because, you want to ensure that you're recovered. You want to ensure that you're strong for the next training session. For me, I know that my protein needs to be around 400 grams a day. My carbs, I know that it needs to be at least 600 grams a day. When I'm pushing things in training, I will add, I drink lots of natural fruit juices. I drink lots of carb powder, lots of rice and potatoes, sweet potatoes. And it's really, really easy for me to break the 800 to 1,000 grams of carbs per day range. As far as fats, I don't really count fats. What I will do is I'll look at the meats that I eat. I try to avoid fish and things like that. I know it's a great protein. I know it contains a better quality fat than what I'm getting from pork and beef and things of that nature, but I just can't get the calories in eating fish that I can with pork and beef. So, right now I've got a slow cooker going over there. It's after midnight. I'm waiting for that to finish, and then I'm going to eat everything there. That I'm going to refill it so it'll be ready for tomorrow for my pre-workout meal. The slow cooker has helped me. Crock pot has helped me a lot. because I can fill it with, let's say, 4 to 6 carrots, 10 potatoes, celery, okra, green beans. I can put an eye of round in there, which is a lean meat. I can throw in a small ribeye or a sirloin for a little bit more fat. I can pick up, so we have really amazing sausages here in Cyprus, not natural, but kind of national flavorings, Cyprus sausages. I can throw in a couple of those that are just loaded with fats and flavor and open everything up. Of course, onions, broccoli, whatever else I want to put in there that's nutritious. And then I can make rice on the stove next to that if I want extra carbs. But that's an easy way for me to get in a large amount of protein. Eating a steak, I found that I love steaks, cooking everything on the grill, but eating a steak is just, it's pleasurable, but it's a pain after 6 months or a year of just pounding down steaks and then getting pork chops and everything getting stuck between your teeth and chew and chew and chew. So I can cook everything in the slow cooker and it's soft, and I can basically eat it with a spoon. Peel everything off. It's easily digestible. I can get in a lot of food. The carrots are very easily digestible. The potatoes are easily digestible. The okra is so nice and adds flavor to everything. The green beans don't bother my stomach. Again, easily digestible, lots of vitamins. And then, I get in the bulk of my carbs. I'm a sucker for having a Monster first thing in the morning. A Monster and a donut and a banana and some BCAAs and EAAs right in the morning. I really am. That's just being honest. I wake up with a sweet tooth, and I fill this thing full of got fluids in it nonstop. It's never empty. But most of my carbs are before training, during training, and after training. Not so much crazy after training, because I try to get in the protein and vegetables after training. But I don't limit myself. I do use the app on, what's the app that I use on my phone? It's the one that everybody uses. MyFitnessPal. I do use that mostly to track my protein, to make sure my protein's up. If I know that if my protein is in the 3 to 4 pound a day range, that everything else is probably taking care of itself. The fats and calories are probably taking care of itself. And then I know that I love carrots and potatoes, and I put zucchini and a couple of cucumbers in there. So I think that takes care of a lot of my vegetable needs. I try to buy fresh and nothing frozen. As far as carbs go, I don't really count those too much. I think if I was gaining a bad amount of weight, or if I was seeing that I wasn't having the energy in the gym, then I would look at my carb intake before and after training. If I was forcing myself to gain weight, I would probably sit here right now and just continue to take in more rice covered with soy sauce and salt and mayonnaise, and just shovel that down to get the carbs and the fat to gain weight. But for me, the biggest thing is to make sure that my protein is in a range that I need it to be in. You kind of have to determine where that is, and then find a standard for what your carbs and your vegetable and your fats are going to be in. And if your fats are way too high, then look at a leaner cut of meat. And the big thing with the slow cooker is you can take a really lean cut of meat. A pork tenderloin is pretty freaking lean, and you can just break it apart with your hands. Very low fat, very high protein, and it's very palatable, which that's one of the big things. That's why fast food is so popular, because I can take a Big Mac or a McDonald's cheeseburger and just shove it in my mouth really without biting, without chewing, and it will dissolve. And I think that's why it's so easy to eat junk food. And that's why it's so difficult to eat turkey, chicken breast, because it's just not palatable. It doesn't come apart in your mouth easily. With the slow cooker, everything comes apart easily. It's really easy to eat good, clean foods. Hope that makes some kind of sense. Okay, again, we're back to the question about steel bending. I'm curious if this is a long piece of steel, or we're looking at the short pieces of steel. This isn't something that you get very often with the long piece of steel. I would find out from the promoter exactly what you're going to have to be doing at the contest. And then I would go to the local steel mill welder, and I would give them that information, and I would get several pieces that are just like that, and then ask them what is 1 step down, what is 2 step down, what is 3 steps down, what is 4 steps down. I think you need a 4 and 5 step range, because I used to do a lot of steel bending at home. That was one of the things that when I first began Strongman, my dad was trying to help me out, and that was what we saw on TV. He thought it was cool, and then that was something that I could do, and then he could take it up to the local restaurant and say, hey, my son built this, bent this hunk of steel into a fish and throw it on the table, hi, my son's cool. But I did get a lot of bicep tendonitis, shoulder tendonitis, pec tendonitis. Guys have torn their pecs and shoulders doing that. So, don't push anything farther than what's comfortable, especially in training. And do the majority of it just like, if you were trying to build a squat, you're working with someone on a squat, you wouldn't have them go in and just load the bar to maximal weight and go down with it as hard as you can. It's a great recipe for injury. You would do lighter weights, repeat, get in the reps, learn the technique, figure out what hurts, why it hurts, when it hurts, how to make it feel good, and how to be a success. And the only way to do that, to be a success, is to train with weights or strengths that you're going to have the greatest success rate at, stuff that you can actually do. So, working on bending a couple of pieces of steel every weekend. Try something that's extra long, because the longer that it is, the easier it's going to be to bend. Towel over your head. There's a ton of videos. That's where I just learned to practice and try stuff. And I learned that everybody is different as well. So get as much cut as you possibly can. And you know what? Your training crew's probably going to love it. That kind of stuff goes over amazing on, in photos, on Instagram, on Facebook, especially if they're not 20-something-year-old studs. If they're computer people or, they've got kids. That's awesome. They can go in there and bend this piece of steel and then give it to their kids. The thing is that piece of steel, once you bend it, it will not unbend. So when you hand it to someone and say, yeah, I bent this with my own hands. Yeah, try to unbend it. Hook a car to it. It's not going to unbend. So it's absolutely amazing. And it's another great way to liven up the training cycle and the training routine in the gym as well. So bending nails and stuff like that, I did that a little bit. I've got giant hands, and it seemed like the nails were never quite the size that I would like them to be. I always poked holes in my hands. Always wear gloves, protection, elbow sleeves, wear a belt. Don't shy away from every piece of precaution and safety that you possibly can. Warm up your shoulders well, warm up your neck, get a mouthpiece. A lot of people will get severe neck cramps bending steel, so get a good mouthpiece. I've got mine over there. Mine's the one that everybody else wears, and it's absolutely amazing. Don't get one of those cheap Walmart ones. Get one made for strongmen. I've got the 6G, whatever it is, and it's worth every penny. It really is worth it. It's really, really worth it. And if they don't have a mouthpiece, have them shove their tongue into the roof of their mouth as they're lifting. That'll help with the whole neck cramp type thing. But don't shy away from it. Have fun. Get lighter, get longer, and play with it. Safety is paramount on this. Anyway, I think this is video number 2. I hope it really helps. I'm going to get this edited up. It's come out to be like an hour long or more. I'm going to get this edited up, sent out to you, posted tonight. Get me a bunch more questions, and I'll get you a bunch more answers. Appreciate it.